What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we've talked here and there about rumors around new PlayStation hardware like the PS5 Pro. Well, a listing popped up online yesterday that had everyone talking, and it had more to do with a PlayStation 5 Slim, but it does appear there's a bit more to this story, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a new Xbox controller, at least a potential controller from Microsoft. And I know we've seen a lot of different color variants for Xbox controllers pop up. This one, though, could be a bit more intriguing as it'd be pulling a page directly from the Dreamcast playbook. And we'll also be taking another look at The Last of Us Part 1 on PC, as things seem to be getting worse as the game itself is turning into a bit of a laughingstock online now, even with Naughty Dog responding. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. We're going to start today with PlayStation Plus for the month of April. This will be the essentials, the extra, the premium, basically the games that you can claim throughout that time period and add to your library. And we can see this posted up over on PlayStation blog. Let's see, we have Meet Your Maker. Build, raid, upgrade. This is a day one release, so I did not have that on my radar at all, but that's part of PlayStation Plus or any of these subscription services where they'll just kind of add games in that maybe you have not tried yet. And like I said, it is coming to the platform and releasing here day one. Then we have Sackboy: A Big Adventure, which that's a fun 3D platforming game. It wasn't like an incredible experience or even one that was very memorable, but just being part of the service here, it'd be fun to fire it up. And it does have local couch co-op, so you can just kind of play through it with a friend or anything there. And then Tales of Iron, which is another game that I have not tried out, but it's not a bad month. It's just not one that's necessarily jumping off the page as we've had with some of the previous announcements. But keep in mind, we should also hear about what's coming to extra in the premium tier here in the next week or two. And that's right now what a lot of people are looking towards, myself especially with the premium side, as I would like to see them really look into that PS2 library. So I guess we'll find out a bit more about that one in a week or two. But for now, April 4th, make sure you claim these at the very least because it's part of the service you're paying for. Also, we did get an announcement for how Resident Evil 4 Remake is doing in terms of sales, and you might be thinking, wow, that's pretty soon. And yeah, there's a reason for that, because it's doing really well. We can see this posted up over on Capcom's website, where they say Resident Evil 4 sells over 3 million units in the first 2 days after release. That's really good for like an action horror kind of game, especially on the horror side. That's actually very good. And that means it's selling faster than Resident Evil 2 Remake and Resident Evil 3 Remake. I believe 2 was the closest, that doing just over 3 million in its first week or so after release. And look, Resident Evil 4, it's just a really good game. I completed my first playthrough and I immediately feel like compelled to go back through the game again. There's a lot to upgrade, a lot to discover in the game itself, which is impressive for a title that's linear, right? Overall, but there's just a lot going on in it, and it's just a fun game to play. So I do fully recommend it, and it's to the point now where I'd recommend this completely over even the original title. That is a classic on its own, but Resident Evil 4 Remake definitely took things to the next level, and it's great to see the sales are reflecting that. Oh, and it looks like we have another game that's getting delayed, and this one was a little surprising because it just got a release date not too long ago, but we can see this posted up over on Twitter from Deck 13. This is for Atlas Fallen. They say, our goal has always been to create a memorable ARPG experience in a unique setting with exciting gameplay and the option for fully playable, seamless co-op with a friend. We'd love to give the game some extra time, which will allow us to deliver the best possible version of Atlas Fallen. And to achieve this, we have made the difficult decision to delay worldwide launch of Atlas Fallen to August 10th, 2023. And they go on to say that they will have more updates going forward here towards that eventual release date now in the second half of this year. Originally, it's going to be May 16th, so 4 days after Tears of the Kingdom, and it's obvious. They saw the gameplay for Tears of the Kingdom, and they're like, nope, we got to get out of the way of this. To be honest, I feel like they saw the reaction, I think, from pockets of the internet, and they said, you know, we can spend some more time on this polishing, changing a few things maybe at the last minute, but I guess we'll see more about this game as we get closer to its August release now. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the PlayStation 5 and what's been rumored for a while now, I think 6 or 7 months, that being a revision that would slim the system down, but also make the disk drive that's currently internal as sort of an add-on piece, or one that you would attach to the side and then plug into the back. At least that is what's been described so far, and it makes sense from a logistics side for Sony, as they would just produce one SKU and then just have an accessory on the side that they can ship separately and people can pick up as an optional thing. As we know, the rise of digital gaming continues to move forward, so those disk drives become less and less necessary for many people out there. But something popped up online and it started to circulate a bit, and it had to do with a listing that was found at an online retailer in Australia that seems to reference this device. We can see this posted up. This over on The Good Guys. This is an Australian retailer, and they say the new look slimmer PlayStation 5. Incredibly vivid, vibrant colors with breathtaking HDR, visuals, and immersion, whether you're gaming or streaming movies and TV shows. Now, we have, of course, seen retailers just accidentally post or leak stuff well ahead of time for different systems, so it wouldn't be hard to believe necessarily that, yes, there is a slim PlayStation 5 coming this year, and a retailer happens to just post up by accident, maybe as an automated listing that just happened to go up for long enough for people to capture a screenshot. But you can actually go back on like Internet Archive or the Wayback Machine and see that this has actually been there for about 2 years now in this current state. In fact, it appears that they just changed PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5. This, I guess, would have originally been describing the PlayStation 5 Slim, and now, or PlayStation 4 Slim, now saying PlayStation 5 Slim. So I do believe that there is a PS5 revision from Sony that will be a slim system, one that kind of refines the outside, as the internals have actually changed quite a bit. And it's kind of the silent revision that Sony doesn't necessarily advertise, but for example, the system has gotten lighter over time, the materials inside have slimmed down, and they've changed out things, power supply, even the motherboard itself has been completely rearranged. All of this lending to just a smaller footprint inside, and yes, lighter for Sony to ship around. And I think the next step for them would be to introduce a new system or a new PS5 revision that won't necessarily bump resolution, frame rate, anything like that, but just change the overall form factor, make it slimmer, and have that detachable drive as an option. See, because while I think many people are trying to figure out the reasoning behind a PlayStation 5 Pro and why Sony would push for that to even exist in the first place with the current PS5 selling so well, it actually makes sense for the slim model to exist, as it would work to cut down costs when it comes to the logistics, and yes, give them another bit of a spike, a bit of excitement around a new system launching, even though it's technically still the same system, just smaller. I think there are a lot of people out there who saw how large the PS5 were and maybe said, hey, I'll wait for a slim version to get it then, and maybe some of the bugs and issues will be worked out. And in fact, that was actually part of the poll question that we'll take a look at later on the show. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft and a recent patent that was spotted by Game Rant. And it kind of plays off of another patent from December of last year, showing a similar idea and kind of a play off of the VMU on the Dreamcast. Yeah, this is a screen on a controller for Xbox, which we can see one part of the patent here posted up again by Game Rant. And the interesting thing about this, one, you can see kind of where that screen would be right at the top where the Xbox button is currently. It kind of looks like Microsoft has sort of moved it down to that center part, and then you still have your different buttons for start and select, and then your share button. But in place of where the Xbox logo is currently, we have a screen that kind of, at least according to the patent image, which again, these are more or less rough sketches, kind of conforms to the shape leading up to the top of it, but it looks like they have some ideas for what this could do. That includes loadouts. I guess that would be maybe for a game like Call of Duty, audio, home, performance, which is interesting, and then social, which would be social media, I would assume. And we know that when you do share on the Xbox, that button, you can send images or video that you take through the DVR. You can send it right to Twitter, right, as an example. So I guess you'd have a more visual representation of all of that happening without having to stop the gameplay or go through all the menus on the Xbox. You can do it right here from this screen. I also like the idea of having kind of the battery icon there telling you how much is left, and maybe even, I guess, right next to it, 5 hours 40, that'd be how much time you have left in terms of the overall battery life. And it even looks like you can, I guess, mute or change the audio directly from this screen, which, because you can see the little icon at the top, as well as your username. And to go a bit further, according to the patent, this entire thing is a touchscreen. And I know what people are thinking right now. Won't that just destroy the battery life? And it's not going to make it better. Although right now the Xbox Series battery life for the Xbox Elite controller, Series 2, battery life is 30 to 35 hours. So even if you cut that in half, technically it'd be 15 to 20 hours maybe. And based on the functionality they're attempting to describe here, that might be worth it to a lot of people. I mean, really, if you look at the PlayStation 5 controller, it's significantly less than that even, and that doesn't have a screen on it. So the idea of having this screen there, and yeah, it would also bump up the price, I think opens up a lot of possibilities, and it's something we attempted to visit in 1999 with the Dreamcast, and the VMU was pretty cool to have that there, and all kinds of gameplay options I'm sure could be available. The only thing with that is you would have to have developers create specifically for a controller that, if it is the current price of a Elite controller, $130 maybe to $150, you're not going to have as many really jump on board to make a big push for that. But Microsoft could, of course, program and design it to maybe take advantage of different things in games just separately on its own. I also wonder if this is a way for Microsoft to have a controller that can be used across all different platforms easier. So you may have streaming on your phone, and then also on your, maybe just playing on PC, and then you go to your TV, which can sync up the Xbox controller directly to it if you have the correct one, and then go to your Xbox Series X and then Series S. You may just have the ability to do that right there on the screen without the system having to be on to use the controller. This could actually be something that's more of an all-in-one device for getting around between all the different platforms you have in that Xbox ecosystem. But I am generally for new tech like this that could add a new dynamic even to gaming. This is still a patent though, so while it does appear that Microsoft has been working quite a bit on the idea of putting a screen on an Xbox controller, we would still need the official announcement for them. But hey, they're at least pulling a page directly from the Dreamcast playbook, a system once again that came out in 1999, and we're still pulling concepts from it. So yeah, it turns out that system was a little bit ahead of its time. Next up, let's talk about The Last of Us Part 1 on PC. This is a game that released the other day, and the port has not gone over well on PC. On Steam, mostly negative reviews overall, and Iron Galaxy just appears to have put out a well below average port at this point that kind of reminds people now of Batman Arkham Knight. Not a great situation to be in for Sony or Naughty Dog. In fact, it's gotten to the point where people are just, they're beyond the anger phase, kind of the acceptance, and now they're just sort of laughing at the situation because some of the glitches are genuinely hilarious. There's one as an example, and these are being posted up on their subreddit for The Last of Us constantly, where they're just having a conversation between Joel and Ellie, and all of a sudden, all the characters just have like their soaking wet models pop in mid-conversation. So they're just kind of dripping with water as they are talking, going from one scene of being completely dry to just being soaking wet. And then others, people are posting up on Reddit where the models of the characters appear to just be falling apart, and it just looks super low resolution, almost like a PS1 mixed with a PS5 game altogether. It's very weird stuff. And then obviously you have other graphical issues where characters are going through each other when they're trying to carry them, and it's a mess. But it also was bringing up some pretty hilarious comments and just scenes overall that people were at least getting some enjoyment out of. Now, all this has led to Naughty Dog responding the other day, which you can see posted up over on Twitter. They said, "Last of Us Part 1 PC players, we've heard your concerns, and our team is actively investigating multiple issues you've reported. We will continue to update you, but our team is prioritizing updates and will address issues in upcoming patches." So this isn't a good look at all for Sony and Naughty Dog, but definitely on Sony's side, because they are trying to build confidence with the PC gaming community when it comes to them moving games over. Like, they want people with PCs to look at these PlayStation Studio releases as high quality. And that's something that Jim Ryan has said many, many times before when it comes to PlayStation Studios. They would rather delay until it's right rather than put it out early, which is also strange because this is a game that was delayed. Like, the PC port was delayed, and you feel like someone there would have looked at this and said, you know, this doesn't seem like it's ready for launch, but I guess they pushed it out there anyway, and now we see some of the results from that. And Jim Ryan has mentioned before that they feel like they're capped at 20 million sales in general for their games. They got to go a bit above that because game costs continue to rise. So they either have to continue moving up prices for these individual games. Do we go to $80 or $90? Or can they actually find another community outside of just PlayStation that they can sell to? Well, if you have these kind of releases, you're going to have your confidence dwindle very quickly, and they won't necessarily buy it immediately or even just pass on it until it's on a steep discount on Steam. But I guess at this point, all we can do is wait and see if Naughty Dog can have some of these patches out a bit quicker so that they can at least get this game into an acceptable state. Because now, after this kind of impression that's made from like one of Sony's biggest intellectual properties, it does bring some pause and concern on the next big release that they do, maybe God of War Ragnarok or others. So we'll see if Naughty Dog can hopefully get this smoothed out, and then from there, maybe they'll look at a company or a port studio like Iron Galaxy a bit more thoroughly before the game comes out in this kind of state. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the NPD sales results, this for the month of February. And we'll start with the systems, as I'm sure people are at least curious how they all placed. It goes PlayStation units and dollar sales, then Switch, then Xbox. If you go by just pure dollar sales, it goes PlayStation 5, Xbox, then Switch, because obviously you have a $500 Series X and a $500 PS5 in the mix, whereas the Switch is kind of capped at $350. And we can see this posted up by Matt Piscatella over on Twitter with the NPD group, saying video game hardware spending increased 68% when compared to February 2021 to $495 million. This is the highest video game hardware spend for a February month since the $534 million total it reached in 2009. And I mean, think about 2009. You had the Wii, the Xbox 360, and the PS3 selling like large volumes of consoles at that time. And a lot of this is being attributed to the PlayStation 5, which had a massive February. In fact, this was apparently the best February we've seen from PlayStation ever. And that goes back to even the PS2. And think about those kind of months that game system was turning out. This all, of course, in the US. And Sony is on an absolute tear right now with the PS5, just at least be able to provide stock, but also aligning themselves with games that are selling at a rapid pace. And we can actually go over to the top 20 games here. We'll take a look at the top 10, though, starting with Hogwarts Legacy at the number 1 spot. Remember, that is a game that Sony had the marketing for and basically put the PlayStation logo right next to it every single time. So kind of makes sense that the PlayStation 5 hardware would sell really well here. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 at 2. Then we have Dead Space, which is holding up pretty nicely there. Remember, it came out in the number 2 spot the previous month, only fell 1 position, and that's with basically Hogwarts Legacy coming out. Madden NFL 23, FIFA 23, The Last of Us Part 1, climbing up from number 11 to the 6th spot, a lot of that having to do with the series, of course, that was ongoing. Elden Ring, Wild Hearts, Like a Dragon Ishin, and then Octopath Traveler 2 rounding out the top 10. I would have liked to have seen Octopath Traveler 2 a bit higher here, but to be honest, in the US, the NPD, that's not bad. So overall, it was a massive month for the PlayStation 5 and Hogwarts Legacy. Hogwarts Legacy, by the way, also now the best-selling game overall for 2023 so far, and I wouldn't be shocked if we get to the end of the year and it's up there as potentially the top game, but in the top 3, I would say, depending on how things go with something like Call of Duty. But now looking forward, because we are about to end the first quarter here for the year, it seems that Sony is setting up to have a massive overall quarter. In fact, there's potential for this being the biggest quarter a system has ever seen, and just across all platforms, companies, everything. So we'll have to keep tabs on that with Sony when they're ready to announce their overall earnings, which I believe will be in that first week of May. And that'll be alongside of like Nintendo and everything. So interesting stuff here for the PlayStation 5. Looks like Sony is really starting to ramp up those sales across the board. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, would you be interested in buying a PS5 Slim console? 8% said that, yeah, they would even upgrade from their current regular PS5. 21% say yes, it would be my first PS5. And that's something I was curious about. How many people were holding off either because they couldn't find one or they were just waiting for that next model to come out that maybe has some of the launch issues figured out. And then 71% say no, I wouldn't be interested in one. And that's understandable unless they have some new feature or something attached to it. If you have a PS5 and it fits in your entertainment center, there's probably not going to be a big time reason to go out and get that Slim right away. But hey, down the road, if maybe you need another PS5 or your current one breaks down or something, obviously then move to the Slim. But yeah, I do think there would be excitement around a PlayStation 5 Slim, even if there wasn't a massive feature attached to it necessarily. I just see a lot of people ask for a smaller PS5. And you know what? I'm actually curious how much smaller Sony can get it. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Mercado saying, I hope Tears of the Kingdom have dungeons, good challenging ones. I never liked the shrines, especially when most of them were just repeats and the Divine Beasts were too easy. So this is something I have been seeing more and more in conversation on social media and YouTube and all of this. It's kind of like the crowd that really likes the shrines and Breath of the Wild setup versus the crowd who likes just the traditional dungeons that are set up so meticulously to have you essentially explore through it in kind of a defined path, and you get like a weapon or object that then lets you open up other parts of it, and then you go and do the next dungeon, and it just seems like the puzzles are tied together so nicely. But the openness of Breath of the Wild with the shrines being more bite-sized is also appealing. So we just did Breath of the Wild. I wouldn't mind going back to kind of more the traditional dungeon route and then going back to the Breath of the Wild. It's sort of that sense of, I've done this a lot recently, now I want to do the traditional dungeon. Then you do that a while, okay, now I want to go to the Breath of the Wild. So it's back and forth for me, but I wouldn't mind seeing them kind of pull off a mixture of both. Some shrines, but then also have some of those meticulously set up dungeons that maybe are a bit more thought out, maybe a bit better than what we had with the Divine Beasts. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Where's the PlayStation 5 Slim? Let's say one comes out this holiday. Would you be interested in picking one up? And then also, what about this patent that we've seen pop up a couple of times from Microsoft for a screen on the Xbox controller? Would you be interested to see how that would work? And what do you think about picking one up? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.